अभी अनम्यूट है।
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, friends. We welcome you all for this wonderful session on fire insurance organized by Bharati Bima Karmachari Sena and Mumbai Insurance Institute. I am your friend Jeevan Bhosle from Team BVKS. Our today's faculty is our most famous faculty, and she do not need any introduction. Mrs. Geeta Hegde. Geeta ma'am has vast experience in insurance market, both in academic and practical situations. She is also called by NI Pune for giving her lectures various times. Last year's her lectures for promotional exam has crossed more than 5,700 views. I request Geeta ma'am to take over and lecture.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you,
Good
Jeevan,
morning,
for
madam.
the introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Thank you. Now we start the session on fire insurance. Fire is possibly the topic which everybody opts for, and it is in combination of fire and engineering insurance. But the experience shows that maximum questions come on fire. So more than 50 certainly is on fire and less on engineering. That does not mean we should not concentrate on engineering, but fire needs
मैडम आवाज नहीं आ रही।
I'm not audible.
the session. Am I audible?
Now not audible.
Yes. Thank you. Examples of insurable property: building, electrical installation, furniture and fixtures, contents of residence, factory or godown, goods in open, pipelines located inside or outside the compound. Doesn't require much explanation. Basis of sum insured is something very important in fire insurance. Either basis of insurance can be market value or reinstatement value. To begin with, we are talking about SFSP policy, standard fire and special perils policy. We will be coming separately to the new policy.
Ma'am, there is
So
one
you-
small request.
Yes,
Ma'am, please अपना screen full screen कर दीजिए एक बार. Just press on F5.
screen नाही झाली.
Madam, you are not audible. हेलो
मैम, यू आर नॉट ऑडिबल।
मैडम, आवाज नहीं आ रही है आपकी।
स्क्रीन शेयर कर रही हूँ।
मैडम, आवाज नहीं आ रही है आपकी।
मैम, नॉट ऑडिबल, आवाज नहीं आ रही मैम।
Yes, yes. अभी आ रही है? Yes. Am I audible now?
यस यस मैम, ऑडिबल।
Okay. Examples of insurable property we have seen.
मैडम इसको फुल स्क्रीन कीजिए प्लीज, स्लाइड को।
ते तुम्ही जेव्हा स्लाइड दाखवता ना तेव्हाच तुम्हाला शेअर करता येईल. स्लाइड शो करा बरं.
अब ठीक है मैडम.
काय ठीक है.
Yes. Okay.
Yes ma'am. Thank you.
So we have come to the basis of sum insured. Is the most
अरे
important.
यार माझं गेलं.
मैडम आवाज कट रही है आपकी.
हे काय आलं. मायक्रोफोन हे कुठे गेलं याचं. यार मजा माहिती.
Now it is better.
Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
Yes. Basis of sum insured is market value or reinstatement value. As I said, we are talking about SFSP policy. So market value and reinstatement value are the two options for sum insured. Market value is the amount at which the property of the same age and condition can be bought or sold. In short, it is the sum insured with depreciation, and reinstatement value is the value at which the damaged property can be replaced by a new property without depreciation. The depreciation for the purpose of fire insurance is the actual physical intrinsic value and not the depreciation used for accounting purpose, not the income tax purpose.
Please do not put lines on the screen, otherwise that person will be removed.
You can see some lines on the screen. Depreciation for the purpose of fire insurance is the depreciation actual physical intrinsic value and not the depreciation used for accounting purpose or income tax purpose or book value or to arrive at written down value. Reinstatement value is different from reinstatement condition number 9, which we will be seeing. Though the word reinstatement is used in 3 places in fire tariff, the meaning differs. So we will be seeing that at the relevant slides. So here the option of market value or reinstatement value is to be opted. Now, building, plant and machinery, furniture, fixtures, fitting and electrical installation have the option of market value or reinstatement value, whereas other contents will be on market value. Like stock will always be on market value, whereas building, plant and machinery, furniture and fixtures, fitting and electrical installation will have the option of market value or reinstatement value in SFSP policy. Properties where market value cannot be ascertained, like works of art, manuscript, obsolete machinery, the agreed value has to be considered, which is neither market value nor reinstatement value. It is the agreed value which becomes payable at the time of claim without ascertaining the market value at the time of loss. Basis of sum insured for raw material will be market value, that is the cost at which the insured can purchase the material. Semi-finished goods, market value will be cost of raw material plus expenses included up to the stage. Finished goods, market value, cost of raw material plus all overhead expenses till it reaches the finished goods stage, and not the selling price, which includes profit. The selling price for finished goods, we are not saying that the market value will be the sale price, because the sale price includes an element of profit, and profit cannot be covered for the sum insured under fire policy. Sum insured is to be always fixed by the insured. It is the maximum limit of liability under the policy. It is the amount on which rate is applied. It should represent the actual value of the property insured. If actual value of the property is not insured, that is either there is overinsurance or underinsurance, what will be the effect? For overinsurance, there is no benefit to the insured. If there is underinsurance, condition of average shall apply. While studying fire for exam purpose, it is necessary that whether it is the coverage, exclusions, conditions, the add-ons, the entire line till the end is to be read carefully because the questions involved, it is important that we don't read the line casually, but till the last word of any add-on cover or condition or exclusion is to be understood properly. Midterm revision in the sum insured is permitted. Increase in sum insured is on pro rata basis, and decrease in sum insured premium retention is on short period scale. Cancellation of insurance and partial insurance. Cancellation at the option of the insured or cancellation at the option of the insurance company. Though these two options are there, generally insurance company does not cancel the policy unless there is any fraud or misrepresentation. But the condition is there in the SFSP policy. Cancellation at the option of the insured, then retention of premium is at short period scale. And if cancelled on account of government order, or then the pro rata refund can be allowed. Otherwise, retention is at the short period scale. If the cancellation is at the option of the insurer, insurance company, then the refund on pro rata basis for unexpired term is allowed. This condition, though we feel that this is a very not so important condition because it appears in each and every policy, all the policies of general insurance. However, it is important because there is a difference in the cancellation clause of the SFSP policy and the new policies. So we must remember what it is permitted as per SFSP also. Tariff does not permit covering certain portions of the building or only specific machines or accessories housed in one block, except the plinth and foundation or only foundation and boilers from machinery cover. So the All India Fire Tariff does not permit partial insurance of any building or partial insurance of the machineries. The exception is plinth and foundation, which can be excluded, or the boilers from the industrial boiler, not the domestic boiler. Domestic boilers can be covered. The industrial boiler from the machinery cover, because the boilers, industrial boilers, can be covered under a boiler explosion separate policy under engineering department.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
In previous slide, that plinth and foundation is exception. They are not covered, right?
Yes.
And in case of earthquake cover also, add-on cover, it is covered or not?
If you are excluding plinth and foundation, excluding plinth and foundation only for fire.
Okay.
Excluding plinth and foundation is not allowed for earthquake.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, even if it is excluded, it can be excluded only for fire and not for earthquake.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes. Structure of All India Tariff. We may feel that it is not necessary to know which are the sections because we refer to the tariff as and when required. However, from the exam point of view, it is important to know the structure of All India Tariff. The first section is General Rules and Regulations. Section 2 is Standard Fire and Special Perils Policy. Third section gives the rating of dwelling, offices, shops, hotels, that is the non-industrial risk, which is outside the compound of industrial and manufacturing risk. Section 4 gives rating for industrial or manufacturing risk. Section 5 gives rating for utilities located outside the industrial and manufacturing risk. Section 6 gives storage risk. Generally, we are covering godowns under this section, open or closed. Storage risk outside the compound of industrial and manufacturing risk. Section 7, tank farms or gas holders outside the compound of industrial and manufacturing risk. Section 8 gives add-on covers, their wording and the rates. And the annexure gives specimen copy of clauses. Perils covered under standard fire and special perils policy. Generally, we know all the perils. What is important is within the peril, what is excluded. Fire, for the purpose of insurance, means actual ignition or burning under accidental or fortuitous circumstances, so far as the insured is concerned. Why it is said so far as the insured is concerned? It should be accidental for the insured. It may not be accidental for the neighbor from where the fire has come to the insured. So for the purpose of definition of fire, the fire should be accidental for insured, excluding loss or damage caused by its own fermentation, natural heating or spontaneous combustion. It's undergoing any heating or drying process, burning of property by order of any public authority. So spontaneous combustion is an exclusion from the definition of fire, and it gets covered as an add-on cover. However, it is basically an exclusion when it comes to the definition of fire for the purpose of policy. Lightning with or without actual ignition taking place. Explosion or implosion, excluding loss, destruction or damage to the boilers other than domestic boilers, loss or destruction caused by centrifugal force. These excluded losses are covered under boiler explosion policy under engineering department. What is explosion? Explosion is the sudden violent burst with a loud sound, and implosion is bursting inward or collapse due to the internal pressure. Aircraft damage, loss, destruction or damage caused by aircraft and other aerial or space devices and article dropped therefrom, excluding loss due to the pressure waves or shock waves due to aircraft flying at supersonic speed. Again here, what is exclusion within the cover is important. All exclusions do not fall under the general exclusions of standard fire and special perils policy. Certain exclusions are a part of cover. So the difference has to be noted. Like spontaneous combustion is not a general exclusion. Spontaneous combustion is an exclusion within the cover of fire. Similarly, this supersonic speed or pressure waves is an exclusion within the cover of aircraft damage. Riot, strike and malicious damage, excluding total or partial cessation of work, permanent or temporary dispossession by order of government or lawful authority, permanent or temporary dispossession due to unlawful occupation by any person or prevention of access, and burglary, housebreaking, theft, larceny or malicious act. STFI, storm, typhoon, tempest, hurricane, tornado and inundation. Now, earthquake, volcanic eruption or other convulsions of nature. So generally we are giving earthquake cover under each and every policy, and we are not even permitted mostly to delete earthquake. So we always feel that earthquake is an add-on cover. Though we are charging additional premium for earthquake and covering it, which does not fall within the rate of now Flexa rate, earthquake is an add-on cover, but basically it is an exclusion falling under STFI perils. So STFI perils say that it is AOG perils of STFI excluding earthquake, volcanic eruption and other convulsions of nature. Then it gets added when you pay extra premium for earthquake. Impact damage, impact by any railroad vehicle or animal, excluding those belonging to the insured or occupier of the premises or their employees. It is not only insured, but occupier of the insured premises or the employees, vehicles or any other road vehicles belonging to the insured or occupier or employees is excluded from the impact damage. So only the impact by third party road vehicle animal is covered under this. Again here, the impact by insured own vehicle can be covered by paying extra premium as add-on cover. Subsidence and landslide, including rock slide. Here again, what it excludes? Excludes the normal cracking, settlement, movement of ground, defective design, demolition, etc. So during the demolition work, if something happens, the design itself is defective, or there is a normal cracking and the building falls, then it is not covered. Bursting and or overflowing of water tanks, apparatus and pipes, missile testing, operations, leakage from automatic sprinkler installations, excluding again repair, alteration, removal, extension of building, sprinkler system, or known construction defects. The leakage should be accidental and should not be due to any work being conducted or any extension being done on the building or any modification of the sprinkler system. Bushfire, excluding forest fire. Bushfire is a limited to a certain area and localized, whereas forest fire is catastrophic in nature. Generally, we study this only for the purpose of exam. Otherwise, we are not required much. Now today, it all the more becomes important for you from the exam point of view, because further you will notice that there are some changes regarding these covers in the new policies. So the difference between SFSP and the new policies needs to be noted. Bushfire, excluding forest fire. So under SFSP, bushfire is covered, forest fire is an add-on cover. These are the perils covered. Now, what is a silent risk? Silent risk is rated separately under tariff. What we understand by silent risk? The factory is deemed to be silent if there is no manufacturing or storage for at least 30 consecutive days. Closure following a loss will not make a risk eligible for rating as silent risk. However, if materials are stored in a silent risk, the higher rate will be applicable. So, in case of a silent risk, if there is a claim payable under the policy or there is a loss, later the industry or the manufacturing unit becomes silent because the manufacturing cannot be carried on. That is not what we understand by silent risk. Silent risk is silent from beginning of the policy itself before the loss takes place, when there is no manufacturing or storage activity for minimum 30 consecutive days. Now, when a factory is silent, like for example, if a sugar industry is silent, there is possibility that there is only machinery and it is silent, or there is machinery and stock of sugar, the gas in the factory and it is silent. No manufacturing, but there is stock. If there is stock, then the rate applicable for storage risk or silent risk, whichever is higher, will become applicable. So silent risk without storage, silent risk with storage. Silent risk with storage will attract rate of storage risk or the silent risk rate given in the section 4, whichever is higher. Now we see add-on covers. Impact damage due to insured's own vehicle. As already seen, impact by insured's own vehicle is a add-on cover, whereas impact by a third party is a basic cover. Now, while seeing the add-on covers, two things are important as to what is the rate charged and what is the sum insured. What can be the sum insured, or what has to be the sum insured for impact damage due to insured's own vehicle? The total policy sum insured. Certain add-ons will have policy sum insured to be covered, on which premium is to be paid by default, and certain add-ons will have a sum insured to be chosen by the insured. Now you can understand that impact damage can be on any part of the property. So the policy sum insured has to be opted for paying the premium by default. So impact due to insured's own vehicle, the sum insured is going to be the policy sum insured. Spontaneous combustion. Spontaneous combustion, as we know, will not be applicable for building or even machineries. So sum insured of the relative commodity. Why it is said relative commodity? Because even in the stock, there may be various other stock which are not prone to spontaneous combustion. So they need not be covered for spontaneous combustion. If the property which is prone to, the contents which is prone to spontaneous combustion has to be opted, or some insured of that relative commodity is to be selected for spontaneous combustion as an add-on cover. Materials like coal, hay, bagasse are susceptible to spontaneous combustion, fermentation or heating on its own. Cover is for damage due to fire only. The important under this wording is damage due to fire only. Mere charring of the property is not covered. As a result of spontaneous combustion, wherein heat is generated within the property, there can be charring of the property without any flame. As we say, damage due to fire only, even if the spontaneous combustion add-on is opted, the loss to that commodity will be payable only due to fire. The flame has to be there, then only it will be covered for spontaneous combustion. Now the other property which is not prone to spontaneous combustion is covered under the basic fire policy, as the spreads from the relative commodity to other property. If it spreads within the industry, then the other property will get covered under the standard fire cover. Earthquake.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Can you explain this spontaneous combustion point of fire only with some example?
Yes. Now, if there is bagasse, generally bagasse fires take place regularly. So there is a heap of bagasse and there is heat generated within. So when the heat is generated within, then the heap of that bagasse catches fire, or it may not catch fire, but because of the heat, it will get charred. That is, it will get burnt, but without a fire. There is no flame, but it is damaged. It becomes black and charred and burnt, but without fire. That is, without fire, we mean without a flame. If there is no flame and it is charred, then it is not covered. But if it results into fire, then that whole heap, generally it results into fire, because when there is a spontaneous, that is own heating within a big heap, then that charring takes place in a very small quantity, in a deep quantity of the heap. So at the charring stage, it is generally not recognized or noticed. So it gradually results into fire, and when there is fire, that heap gets damaged and it also spreads to other. So for the cover of spontaneous combustion as an add-on cover, the flame is necessary. If you remember, some add-on covers were filed, or there were some planned to be filed, which was not successful. The spontaneous combustion without fire was some add-on cover which was proposed sometime, but that was not approved by IRDA. So the spontaneous combustion as original in the AIFT tariff continues, that is spontaneous combustion if not opted, and the loss to the property covered or the commodity covered gets damaged even with fire is not covered. But that fire which spreads to the other commodity or other heap within the factory gets covered even without opting the spontaneous combustion. If you opt for spontaneous combustion, that commodity where the fire has generated due to fermentation or its own heating will also get covered due to spontaneous combustion. Is that clear? There has to be a flame. That is the most important thing.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Earthquake. Earthquake, as we know, it can also cause landslide, rock slide, and flood, overflow of sea, lakes, etc. Same is covered. That is, any landslide, rock slide obviously is covered. Even flood as a result or overflow of sea or lake is also covered when you take the add-on cover of earthquake. However, if the STFI peril is deleted, then flood group of perils due to earthquake will not get covered. So earthquake cover with STFI or earthquake cover without STFI. Earthquake with STFI will cover flood, tsunami, everything, overflow of sea. But if the cause is earthquake, however, you opt to delete STFI from the policy, then the flood due to earthquake will not get covered. Nowadays, this possibility is less because after the Flexa rate, that is after so much of discount or IIB rates. Originally, when we were not giving any discount and STFI deletion was opted, this used to happen. But now mostly STFI deletion is not done or opted in most of the cases. However, for the theory purpose, earthquake covers fire damage or shock both with STFI or without STFI. If we say with STFI, then everything gets covered. If we say earthquake without STFI, that is if earthquake is after deleting STFI, then the flood group of perils due to earthquake will not get covered. Terrorism. Terrorism was sometime a part of RSMD, it was RSMTD. So terrorism is an exclusion from RSMD. It can be covered with extra premium. Spoilage material damage. What is spoilage material damage? In the continuous process plants, when there is a fire and the continuous process gets blocked, there is some machinery and some stock which remains and gets damaged, which remains in the machines. Process is blocked. The fire damage is to some part, but as it is a continuous process plant, the future machinery, like if you say a jam manufacturing where there is a continuous process and the initial process there is a fire and the process gets blocked, then that process which gets discontinued, it spoils the further machinery or stock, not because of fire, but it is getting damaged or stock is getting damaged because your process has stopped. So the loss to the further machinery or to the stock is not a direct result of fire. So that is known as spoilage material damage, which is an exclusion, but it can be covered as an add-on cover. Spoilage of stock or machinery should occur due to retardation, interrupt, cessation of process in the insured premises, which is damage due to an insured peril, and liability is admissible under the policy. So spoilage of stock or damage to the machinery due to any other reason is not covered. It is getting covered. This add-on also has precondition that there has to be a peril covered under the policy, which is in the insured premises, but maybe in the some other process. And due to that interruption, there is damage to the stock and to the machinery. And that liability due to insured peril is admissible under the policy. So the further damage due to spoilage to the machinery and the stock gets covered as add-on cover. Leakage and contamination. What should be the sum insured for leakage and contamination? Again, the specified sum insured, because something that is prone to leakage and contamination needs to be covered. The entire stock or entire property, machinery, building need not be covered. So the sum insured for leakage and contamination is going to be the specified sum insured and not the policy sum insured. Now, leakage and contamination needs little explanation, and we have also seen previously that some questions, because knowing leakage and contamination is an add-on cover is not sufficient from the exam purpose, because what we imagine, everything may not be correct about the written clause of leakage and contamination. Leakage and contamination only for oils and chemicals. Only leakage or leakage and contamination can be covered. That is, within the add-on cover, there are two options. Either you opt for only leakage or you opt for leakage as well as contamination. Rate will differ. Only leakage will be less. Leakage plus contamination will be slightly higher. Leakage from container by accidental means and accidental contamination by contact with foreign matter. Now rate is lower when tank is within the premises and higher where the tanks are located outside insured premises. Loss due to contamination due to improper handling is excluded. Loss due to shrinkage, evaporation, loss of weight, not covered. Now, when does the cover start? Cover starts when the material reaches the tanks. So the cover is only in the tanks, and purity of liquid to be certified by the surveyor. This is a precondition. And cleanliness of pipelines, pumping equipment, and the tanks to be first ensured. And loss payable at market value. And additional excess is applicable for this add-on. 72 hours clause for earthquake. Condition of average, that is under insurance. Salvage recovery. Now, what is 72 hours clause? For earthquake is if there is a earthquake and second incident or second earthquake within 72 hours, it will be treated as a single incident. So, in case of leakage and contamination, you have to remember that the cover is in the tank, and the tank cleanliness of the tank has to be ensured, and it can be either leakage plus contamination or only leakage cover, and it is for only oil and chemicals and not any other liquid. Now, add-on cover, continue. Omission to insure additions and alterations. Policy rate to be applied on 5% of the sum insured. Here the sum insured is going to be only 5% of the sum insured, but rate will be policy rate. New additions, or what is this add-on cover for? In the currency of the policy, if the sum insured is high, insured may forget to inform the insurance company regarding some addition to machinery or some little bit of some construction which has happened, but has forgotten to inform the insurance company about the changes, and so premium remains to be paid. What will be the effect? There will be under insurance if there is loss. To avoid this, insured can opt for omission to insure additions, alterations. Generally, what happens is we call this add-on as omission to insure, omission to insure. As I said, these words have to be clearly read: omission to insure, additions, and alterations. So, when some addition is there, insured has to inform to the insurance company within as soon as it is added. However, if he does not inform at least within 30 days of expiry of the policy, and premium can be paid, or if the premium paid of 5% of the sum insured on the 5% of the sum insured may become extra or not required actually. So this may result even into refund of the advance premium, but that will not be done if the insured does not claim for refund or does not intimate to the company about any changes made within 30 days of expiry of the policy. Deterioration of stock in cold storage. Now, what happens is there is a cold storage which is covered under the fire policy. Now, the stock in the cold storage gets damaged when there is a fire to the cold storage machinery. Basically, this is an exclusion because damage to the machinery, cold storage machinery or building and the cold storage machinery due to fire is the direct result of the peril operating, whether it is fire, explosion, or even flood. What gets damaged is the machinery. In case of flood, it is possible that the contents also get damaged due to actual result of flood. But in case of fire, if the machinery is damaged and the contents are not damaged due to fire, then it is a consequential loss of fire, which is an exclusion under the fire policy. But if the deterioration of stock in the cold storage needs to be covered, it can be covered as an add-on cover. Now, when will the stock get damaged in the cold storage? When there is a power failure. Power failure can take place as accidental, or power failure could be deliberate load shedding. So failure must be accidental is the important point. Then the failure can take place at the insured's premises, or it can happen due to power failure, due to the peril operating, at the power station. So again and again, I am repeating that due to the peril covered under the policy operating, it is this add-on also is subject to peril covered under the policy operating first and then resulting into the damage to the or deterioration to the stock in the cold storage. So there are two add-on, has two parts. One is at the premises of the power station and at the insured premises. Both is covered, and but the failure must be accidental, and the value of the stock which is in the cold storage will be the sum insured. Now, within this add-on cover, again, we have to see what are the exclusions. So, if the power failure is due to deliberate act of government or local authority, then it's not covered. Supply cut off due to rationing, that is load shedding, it is not covered. Insured has to take care for this such contingencies. Time excess, that is 24 hours. So, for failure of electric supply within 24 hours, claim is not admissible. It should exceed at least 24 hours. And sum insured should be the total stock which is in the cold storage. Insured peril must operate at the supply station to cause failure of electric supply. Now, here we are reading it as failure of electric supply. It is called as FOES, that is failure of electric supply. Mere lack of power without any peril operating is not covered. There can be a question as to what is FOES, that is failure of electric supply. Continue with the add-on covers. Escalation. Again, escalation specified sum insured. Maximum 25% escalation can be opted. Premium rate charged is 50% of the rate otherwise charged. Sum insured will increase each day by 1/365 of the specified percent of sum insured. That is, if you have opted for 10% escalation, then whatever is the amount of 10% of the escalation will be available from day 1 to the end of the policy. So on the first day, 1 divided by 365 into the amount. Then after 15 days, 15 divided by 365 into the amount of the escalation. So it increases on daily basis from the first day to the end of the policy. It is not available total escalation by 6 months. So by, you can say by 6 months, half of the escalation is available, and by the end of the policy, so it gradually increases. What is the logic? If it is to be made available from the first day, then might as well insured can opt for that increase sum insured. The escalation is being opted because there is a possibility of increase in the sum insured in the currency of the policy. So it is not made available for claim from the first day, but it increases gradually from the first day to the expiry of the policy. Removal of debris. Add-on is in excess of 1% of the specified sum insured, maximum 10%. Rate applicable is policy rate. That is, by default, 1% is covered. Architect, surveyors and consulting engineers fees, 3% is covered by default. Again, here it is very important to know this from the exam point of view, because there is a difference in these two add-ons as applicable to SFSP and as applicable to the new policies. So 1% and 3% covered, and maximum 10% for removal of debris, and architect surveyor fees can be 7.5% of the claim amount, and the rate charged is the full policy rate. Temporary removal of stock clause. Temporary removal of stock from the insured premises to some other premises up to 10% of the stock and 10% of the policy rate. Only 10% of the total stock. So the stock which is temporarily removed from the insured premises to some other premises, and if there is a loss in the other location, it gets covered under the policy, provided that stock is not covered in the other location where it is temporarily shifted. If the stock is covered maybe as an stock held in trust by the other location, the other insured, then the claim will be payable on that policy. But otherwise, if it is not covered, then insured policy will pay, provided it is removed for fabrication, processing, or finishing only. Reason is fabrication, processing, finishing. Policy sum insured 10% of the total stock value, and rate is 10% of the policy rate to be charged on the total sum insured. Cover is for 10% of the total stock value. So only 10% of the stock removed to other premises will be covered. Forest fire, again the specified sum insured has to be specified. Loss of rent. There are two covers, loss of rent and other is additional expenses of rent for alternate accommodation. Owner can opt for loss of rent, because if there is premises is given to somebody and if there is a fire, then he will be losing the rent. Additional expenses of rent for alternate accommodation, this is for tenant, and again the specified sum insured, the rent amount which is to be specified. Additional expenses of rent is only for non-manufacturing risk. Policy rate is to be charged, but the sum insured will be specified. Startup expenses. What is startup expenses? If there is a loss. So for startup expenses, it is after the loss, this add-on cover. If there is a loss, then there may be some repairs done, which is covered under our fire policy. But after the claim is settled or after the machinery is repaired and installed once again, there may be some expenses required for the inspection and checking whether everything is properly installed or not. So some expenses which may be required, some testing before the factory can once again start. Such expenses which are necessarily and reasonably incurred for restarting the plant. That is important. Policy rate will be charged, but insured has to choose the sum insured. There are certain extensions or clauses which can be incorporated, but they do not require any extra premium. That is reinstatement value clause. When the policy is obtained on reinstatement value basis as against market value basis, then the reinstatement value clause will be incorporated for the insured to understand what are the additional terms and conditions for reinstatement sum insured that he has opted. Local authorities clause is connected to the reinstatement value clause. Designation of property clause, that is when the property classification is done differently by the insured, then whatever classification insured does, it will be agreed by the insurance company. Classification in the books of accounts as done by the insured will be accepted by the insurance company. That is the designation of property clause. Goods held in trust or commission clause, that is insured has some goods which are held in trust, but they are not belonging to him. Then such clause does not attract any extra premium, but it only says that there is goods held in trust. Contract price clause. Again, this clause also has to be properly understood, because the contract price clause also appears in the SFSP and in the new policy also. Now, we see some of the important points out of these clauses. Reinstatement value clause had 4 provisos, 4 important points out of the reinstatement value clause. If the reinstatement value policy is opted, what does the clause say? Sorry.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
I want to ask about the add-on architecture, surveyor and consulting जो fees वगैरह होती है उसकी.
Yes.
Is it 3% of claim amount or 3% of sum insured? As per book, this is 3% of claim amount.
Yes, it is of the claim amount.
Hello.
Yes, correct.
मैम जो एड ऑन लेते हैं हम, ये 3% ऑफ द क्लेम अमाउंट से अबव लेते हैं या 3% ऑफ द सम इंश्योर्ड से अबव मिलेगा?
ये एड ऑन में थोड़ा डिफरेंस है. ये 3% ऑफ द इन एक्सेस ऑफ 3% ऑफ द स्पेसिफाइड सम इंश्योर्ड. 7.5% of the claim amount होता है for architect and surveyor's fees. Okay. और removal of debris में 1% of the specified sum insured, maximum 10%. ये क्या होता है, दोनों क्लेम अमाउंट पे पेएबल होता है 1% एंड 3%, लेकिन मैक्सिमम जो आप ले सकते हैं वो रिमूवल ऑफ डेब्रिस के लिए 10% ऑफ द सम इंश्योर्ड है, वेयर एज द स्पेसिफाइड सम इंश्योर्ड फॉर आर्किटेक्ट सर्विस फीस 7.5% ऑफ द क्लेम अमाउंट तक मिलेगा. तो आपने जो चूज किया वो स्पेसिफाइड सम इंश्योर्ड या क्लेम का 7.5%, whichever is lower will become payable. ऑप्ट करते वक्त यू आर ऑप्टिंग फॉर स्पेसिफाइड अमाउंट. ठीक है, आपका सम इंश्योर्ड अगर 2 करोड़ है एंड यू आर ऑप्टिंग फॉर अ सर्टेन अमाउंट लाइक 52 करोड़ है, आप अगर 5 लाख ऑप्ट करते हो एज आर्किटेक्ट सर्वेयर्स एंड कंसल्टिंग फीस विच इज ओवर एंड अबाउट द 3%, राइट. सो आपके क्लेम के टाइम पे आपका अमाउंट या 7.5% ऑफ द क्लेम अमाउंट whichever is lower. So आपका क्लेम अमाउंट का 7.5%, आपका क्लेम हो गया 2 करोड़ का, पूरा 2 करोड़ हो गया, तो आपका 7.5% जो होगा वो आपने जो ऑप्ट किया वो अमाउंट से हायर होगा. तो आपको जो ऑप्ट किया है उतना ही मिलेगा. तो चूज करते वक्त इट इज ऑन द सम इंश्योर्ड a specified amount, but payable is 7.5% of the 7.5% of the claim amount. ठीक है. हेलो. Reinstatement value clause has 4 important points to be considered. Work of reinstatement must be commenced with reasonable dispatch and completed within 12 months. If carried out at another site, company's liability will not increase. That is, if it's carried out at another site also, company's liability will be the same as we would have paid on the existing site. Until reinstatement is not carried out, liability will be restricted to the normal indemnity basis. Condition of average is still applicable. We feel that when the reinstatement policy is opted or reinstatement clause is opted or sum insured is opted on reinstatement value, that is the current value of the building or the machinery, then the question of underinsurance does not arise. It's not like that, because if the reinstatement value is not correctly anticipated, then there can be still condition of average or underinsurance in the reinstatement policy also. However, the possibility of underinsurance reduces when the policy is opted on reinstatement value. While taking the policy, what is the reinstatement value? That has to be anticipated 2 years ahead, just for example, and not as on the date of the policy, because policy is for 12 months and loss can take place on the 10th or 11th month or last month. Then the reinstatement amount required to reinstate the property may go wrong at the inception of the policy. So when reinstatement option is exercised, then the anticipated sum insured should not be as on date of loss, but it should be higher, anticipating 2 years ahead of the policy, because reinstatement takes place 1 year of the property and policy has 1 year policy period. So completion of the reinstatement will go much beyond 12 months policy period. So it has to be anticipated at a higher side. So condition of average, why I'm telling this is condition of average will not apply. ऐसा नहीं है. Condition of average may still come into picture in case of a reinstatement value policy also. Reinstatement settlement shall not apply if the insured fails to intimate his intention to reinstate within 6 months. So within 6 months he has to intimate whether he will reinstate or not. If he is not willing to, then the claim will be settled subject to depreciation as indemnity basis. So we have seen these extensions. In this, what is the contract price clause? That we have seen that sum insured will be on reinstatement value, or sum insured will be on market value. And in case of stock, it's always on market value. And when it is given on market value, for the semi-finished or finished goods also, we are considering the purchase cost plus the expenses incurred till that time, excluding the profit element. But contract price clause is for the imported goods, and where the contract gets cancelled because of the fire, then in which case the contract price gets protected or can be the sum insured for the purpose of this policy. So the condition of no profit otherwise in the sum insured under fire policy is slightly waived, or there is a difference in case of contract price clause. So imported goods, there is a contract price, contract gets cancelled for the goods which are already sold but not delivered, and so the contract price will be considered as the sum insured instead of only the market value or the value of the finished product. We have seen the reinstatement value proviso. Zones for EQ, earthquake, are 4, and for spontaneous combustion also 4 categories are there: low, non-existent, moderate, and variable, and high. Hazardous goods for storage. For storage, there are 3 categories: category 1, 2, and 3. Now, in case of categorization of hazardous goods 1, 2, and 3, what is the condition? So categories for hazardous goods are: flammable liquids having flash point above 65 degrees Celsius will be category 1. Flammable liquids having flash point between 32 to 65 will be category 2. And flammable liquids having flash point below 32 is category 3. So category 1 is above 65 and category 3 is below 32 degrees Celsius. Now, this is a general classification, and mostly all the properties are listed in the 3 categories given under the tariff. If some of the property is not available, then it can be checked with this criteria. In respect of storage risk and for spontaneous combustion, category 1 is the lowest and category 3 is the highest for storage, and category 4 rate is highest for spontaneous combustion. Whereas for earthquake, category 4 is the lowest and category 1 is the highest. Generally, while rating, we are rating correctly, but we get confused when it comes to exam. In case of spontaneous combustion or in case of storage for godowns, when we are charging, it goes from lower to the higher, category 1, 2, 3 or category 1, 2, 3, 4. For storage, there are spontaneous, there are 4, and for storage, there are 3 categories. It goes from category 1 is lowest and category 4 is the highest, or category 3 is the highest for spontaneous. Whereas it is reverse for earthquake. 4 is the lowest and category 1 rate is the highest. Special policies are floater policy and declaration policy. For floater policy, policy can be granted only for stocks. We know that. Good accounting and audit procedure should be there. Unspecified locations cannot be covered. So all the locations must be specified at the inception of the policy. And 10% floater extra is charged. And no floater extra will be charged if the godowns are within the same compound. Declaration policy. Minimum sum insured is 1 crore. Minimum 25 lakhs at least in one of the location. Periodical declaration, balance premium is refunded, sum insured can be enhanced but not reduced, minimum retention shall be 50% of the premium. So after the monthly declarations are submitted, at the end of the policy period, the average is arrived at by totaling all the declarations divided by 12, and if the declared sum insured is lower than the sum insured, the premium retention should be at least 50%. That is, if the 2 crores is the sum insured opted and the declaration is 1.5 crores, then premium on 50 lakhs can be refunded. But if the average of 12 months is less than 1 crore, it's only 75 lakhs, then the premium on 50% of the sum insured needs to be retained. Now here, the sum insured can be enhanced but cannot be reduced. Like if the insured opts for a sum insured of 10 crore and after 1 or 2 months he feels that this is a very high sum insured, let me reduce it, that is not permitted. Sum insured, it can be, however, if he feels insured, then it can be enhanced. Once the sum insured is fixed, then the declarations will be considered based on that sum insured only. Now, declaration policy is not permitted for short period policy. So whenever a short period policy is permitted under fire, but short period policy cannot be issued for declaration. Stock in process, stock at railway sidings. Some more conditions of declaration policies that, yes.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes,
Ma'am,
yes.
can you give me example of a declaration policy and जो 12 months का जैसे sum insured 2 crores है, 2 crores है, और after 12 months the declaration amount comes 192 lakhs, 192 लाख आ जाती है, 1 करोड़ 92 लाख.
हाँ, so 1 crore 92 lakhs आ गया, तो 2 crore में से सिर्फ 8 लाख कम है, बराबर है?
8 लाख कम जी. उसके
तो 8
बाद
लाख
में
का प्रीमियम रिफंड हो जाएगा. आप या तो 50% ऑफ द सम इंश्योर्ड बोलो या 50% ऑफ द प्रीमियम बोलो, इट्स वन एंड द सेम. आपका प्रीमियम जो है वो 50% से ज्यादा आपके पास रहना चाहिए. तो जब 2 करोड़ सम इंश्योर्ड है और सिर्फ 8 लाख का प्रीमियम रिफंड करना है, तो वो तो 50% से कम ही है ना. सो जब आपका डिक्लेरेशन जो है वो 50% से ऊपर जाता है, आप ये क्राइटेरिया रखिए. प्रीमियम रिटेंशन शुड बी मिनिमम 50% का मतलब क्या है? सम इंश्योर्ड जो एवरेज आता है वो भी 50% से ज्यादा होना चाहिए. अगर आपका एवरेज 12 महीने का 50% से कम है तो आपका रिफंड जो है वो सिर्फ 50% होगा.
एक्सक्यूज मैम, यदि जैसे जो एवरेज आया है 192 1 करोड़ 92 लाख आ गया और 2 करोड़ की सम इंश्योर्ड है, और इसमें जो एवरेज आया है एज पर बुक वो 1 करोड़ 60 लाख शो कर रहा है, जबकि वो 16 लाख होता है.
मुझे लगता है, माय ओपिनियन इज दैट वो एग्जाम में कुछ वो एग्जांपल जो बुक में दिया है ना आपका फायर एंड कॉन्सिक्वेंशियल में, उसमें कोई मिस्टेक है जी. उसको एवरेजिंग ठीक से किया नहीं गया है. वो इस तरह से है कि आपका सम इंश्योर्ड है 2 करोड़, ओके
जी मैम.
आप नेक्स्ट मंथ को इट इज द हाईएस्ट वैल्यू एट रिस्क ऑन इन द लास्ट डे ऑफ द मंथ है या एवरेज ऑफ द मंथ, ये 2 ऑप्शन दिए जाते हैं, बराबर है. ये हम ऑप्शन देखते हैं. बेसिस ऑफ डिक्लेरेशन क्या है? एवरेज ऑफ वैल्यूज, करेक्ट, एवरेज ऑफ द हाईएस्ट वैल्यूज ऑफ रिस्क ऑन ईच डे ऑफ द मंथ. सो पूरे महीने का आपका हाईएस्ट वैल्यू का जो एवरेज होगा, किसी भी महीने में पूरे महीने में जो एक दिन भी हाईएस्ट वैल्यू होगा उसको डिक्लेयर करना है. हाईएस्ट वैल्यू एट रिस्क ड्यूरिंग द मंथ करना है, यानी आपका एक 15 तारीख को हाईएस्ट है तो या तो वो डिक्लेयर करना है या एवरेज में आपको डिक्लेयर करना है. ठीक है. सो व्हेन इट इज डिक्लेयर्ड, हम एग्जांपल लेते हैं कि आपका 2 करोड़ का पॉलिसी है. सो फर्स्ट मंथ में आपने डिक्लेयर किया 1 करोड़, सेकेंड मंथ में आपने अगर डिक्लेयर किया ही नहीं तो आपका पकड़ा जाएगा 2 करोड़. If there is no declaration, sum insured will be taken as the declared value. ठीक है. तीसरे महीने में आपने डिक्लेयर किया, इंश्योर्ड ने डिक्लेयर किया 3 करोड़, तो हम पकड़ेंगे उसको 2 करोड़ ओनली. दैट इज आल्सो वन इम्पोर्टेंट कंडीशन. डिक्लेरेशन कैन नॉट बी मोर देन द सम इंश्योर्ड. अगर इंश्योर्ड को लगता है कि सम इंश्योर्ड से भी उसका डिक्लेरेशन ज्यादा होता है तो उसको एनहांस करना चाहिए सम इंश्योर्ड. एवरेजिंग जो होता है वो सम इंश्योर्ड के ऊपर नहीं होता है, एवरेजिंग जो होता है वो सम इंश्योर्ड या बिलो द सम इंश्योर्ड का एवरेजिंग होता है, ठीक है। सो फर्स्ट मंथ 1.5, सेकेंड मंथ 2 करोड़, नहीं डिक्लेयर किया तो 2 करोड़, थर्ड मंथ 3 किया तो 2 पकड़ेंगे हम, फोर्थ में 1.5 किया, 1 किया, 50 लाख किया। तो इस तरह से एनीथिंग 12 महीने का आप जब एवरेज निकालोगे तो आपका अगर 2 करोड़ सम इंश्योर्ड है तो आपका एवरेज जो है वो 2 करोड़ से नीचे ही आना चाहिए, या तो 1 करोड़ आएगा या 50 लाख आएगा या 1.5 करोड़ आएगा, या आपने जैसे बोला 1.92 आएगा। तो 1.92 आएगा तो आपका रिफंड होगा 8 लाख पे। अगर डिक्लेरेशन का एवरेज हुआ 85 लाख तो आप आधा प्रीमियम रिटर्न करोगे, 1 करोड़ का रिटर्न करोगे, आप 1.5 का रिफंड नहीं करोगे। दैट इज क्लियर। आपका एवरेज जो है वो 50% से या तो कम होगा या ज्यादा होगा। आपका ज्यादा है तो कोई इश्यू, आप बैलेंस को रिफंड करोगे। लेकिन अगर आपका डिक्लेरेशन 50% से कम हुआ तो आप 75% ऑफ द प्रीमियम या 60% ऑफ द प्रीमियम रिफंड नहीं करोगे, आप सिर्फ 50%।
मैम माय क्वेश्चन इज दैट जो एवरेज आती है उसको 2 करोड़ को डिवाइड कर अपना 192 को डिवाइड करके 12 से वो 16 लाख आती है, वो एवरेज आ गई।
आप 192 को क्यों डिवाइड कर रहे हैं? आपका सम इंश्योर्ड 2 करोड़ है। एक मिनट, आपका सम इंश्योर्ड पॉलिसी का अगर 2 करोड़ है, ओके
जी,
तो आप मंथली जब डिक्लेयर करते हो तो हाईएस्ट वैल्यू डिक्लेयर कर रहे हो।
जी मैम।
हाँ, तो आपने डिक्लेयर किया 2 करोड़, 1 करोड़, 50 लाख, जो कुछ भी किया उसका टोटल कीजिए, डिवाइडेड बाय 12 कीजिए।
जैसे 192 करोड़ डिक्लेयर हो गया अमाउंट,
ओके ठीक है, 12 महीने का।
हाँ, 192 लाख हो गया।
192 लाख, 192 लाख, 1 करोड़ 92, ये टोटल 12 महीने का हो नहीं सकता है।
ओके,
that example is wrong or madam
yes that example is wrong. Okay,
wrong.
जब आपका सम इंश्योर्ड 2 करोड़ है और आपका 2 करोड़ या उसका नीचे जब आप डिक्लेयर करते हो तो अगर आपका 12 महीने का सिर्फ 1 करोड़ 92 है तो उसका एवरेज तो सिर्फ 16 लाख आ गए। आप बोल रहे हो अगर 16 लाख अगर एवरेज आता है तो आपका रिफंड होगा 50%। अब पकड़ के चलते एग्जाम्पल करेक्ट है आपका। अगर इतना ही बहुत ही कम डिक्लेयर किया है उसने, राइट, सम इंश्योर्ड बहुत ज्यादा लिया कि उसका 12 महीने का एवरेज भी सम इंश्योर्ड कितना नहीं हुआ है, ऐसे ही हो गया ना ये एग्जाम्पल। तो
ओके ही शुड टेक द सम इंश्योर्ड फॉर अबाउट, जैसे वो 16 लाख का डिक्लेयर कर रहा है हर मंथ, तो उसको 20 लाख के राउंड अबाउट ही लेना चाहिए सम इंश्योर्ड। इट मींस
हाँ, फिर क्या जरूरत है 2 करोड़ लेने का जब उसका जैसे हम अगर क्लेम हो जाता है, अगर हम क्लेम भी एक एग्जांपल देखते हैं तो आपको क्लियर हो जाएगा। आपका अगर पॉलिसी सम इंश्योर्ड 2 करोड़ है, ओके, पॉलिसी सम इंश्योर्ड अगर 2 करोड़ है तो उसको 2 करोड़ तक का क्लेम किसी भी दिन मिल सकता है ना।
जी मैम, अगर
किसी दिन फायर हो जाता है और अगर उसका सम इंश्योर्ड 2 करोड़ है या 1 करोड़ 90 है तो मिल ही सकता है उसको क्लेम। So what you are declaring is the highest value at any point of time. हम इस तरह से डिक्लेरेशन नहीं कर रहे हैं मरीन के जैसा कि रोज कितना कंसाइनमेंट किया,
जी
राइट। मरीन का सम इंश्योर्ड तो इस तरह होता है ना, 100 करोड़ का पॉलिसी लेते हैं, एक एक कंसाइनमेंट जाता है तो उसको ऐड करते जाते हैं।
जी मैम,
इस तरह से नहीं है ये। इन माय ओपिनियन दैट वो जो एग्जांपल दिया है वो बराबर नहीं है।
ओके, थैंक यू सो मच मैम, थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू।
ये तो एवरेज ऑफ द वैल्यूज एट रिस्क ऑन ईच डे ऑफ द मंथ और हाईएस्ट वैल्यू एट रिस्क ड्यूरिंग द मंथ। अगर 2 करोड़ होने वाला ही नहीं है तो वो 2 करोड़ का पॉलिसी नहीं लेगा ना, तो 2 करोड़ के आसपास ही होगा। कभी हो सकता है कि कोई बिजनेस डाउन है, बहुत है, तो कभी बिल्कुल कम हो गया। लेकिन क्यों डिक्लेरेशन पॉलिसी लेता है? क्योंकि उसका एंटिसिपेटेड है कि 12 महीने में कभी तो 2 करोड़ हो सकता है और कभी कम हो सकता है, और उसको उसका राइट सम इंश्योर्ड पे प्रीमियम पे करना है, इसीलिए तो डिक्लेरेशन पॉलिसी ऑप्ट करता है एंड नॉट द स्टैंडर्ड एसएफएसपी पॉलिसी। तो एसएफएसपी लेगा 2 करोड़ का तो कोई रिफंड नहीं मिलेगा ना। तो दिस इज क्लियर। वी विल सी वन एग्जांपल आल्सो इसके ऊपर।
हेलो मैम,
यस,
इसी एग्जांपल में अगर हमें 8 लाख पे रिफंड करना है, तो 8 लाख पे रिफंड अगर सपोज 10,000 आ गया अमाउंट, तो हमें वो पूरा 10,000 देना है कि उसका 50% रख के 5,000 देना है?
नहीं नहीं, आप सिंपल सा सोचिए, क्योंकि अभी आप एग्जाम के लिए सोच रहे हैं, बराबर है। आप 2 लाख पे रिफंड कर रहे हो, तो आप अगर टोटल प्रीमियम आपका 2 करोड़ का जो है, अगर आपका 2 करोड़ का इतना है तो 10 लाख का कितना है, दैट्स ऑल। आपका 2 करोड़ का प्रीमियम कितना है और उसको आप प्रोरेटा निकालिए, 10 लाख का कितना है। अगर 2 करोड़ का 10,000 है प्रीमियम, तो 2 लाख का कितना होगा, वो निकालना है आपको। उसका 50%, वो 50% कंडीशन ऐसा नहीं है। आपका अगर टोटल प्रीमियम जो है पॉलिसी का 2 करोड़ का, फॉर एग्जांपल 10,000 प्रीमियम है, 2 करोड़ सम इंश्योर्ड, 10,000 प्रीमियम, ठीक है, तो आपका जो है 5,000 तो आपके पास प्रीमियम रहना चाहिए। दैट इज द 50% कंडीशन।
ओके, गॉट इट।
करेक्ट,
यस, थैंक
तो आपका प्रीमियम आपके पास रिटेन होगा, वो आपका 50% प्रीमियम से ज्यादा आपको देना नहीं है, यानी आपके पास बचना चाहिए 50%। तो आपका 10,000 अगर 2 करोड़ का है तो प्रोपोर्शनेटली 10 लाख का कितना होगा वो आपको रिफंड करना है।
ओके ओके, गॉट इट मैम, थैंक्स।
ओके
Ma'am, one query is there. As we specify at least 1 crore sum insured, minimum sum insured for declaration policy, and even we do not allow to reduce the sum insured during the policy period. Agar policy, if the policy is opted for 1 crore and the average of declarations for the year comes out to be 60 lakhs, so can we refund the this balance for 40 lakhs?
नॉट 40 लाख नो, हाँ ये नो, ये 60 लाख आता है तो 40 पे तो ये वो रिफंड के लिए नहीं है वो कंडीशन। जब आपका पॉलिसी सम इंश्योर्ड शुड बी 1 करोड़, ठीक है, तो आपका अगर रिफंड आता है तो वो तो 1 करोड़ के नीचे जाएगा ही ना। तभी तो आपका, अभी समझो आप 1 करोड़ है, 80 लाख हो गए तो 20 का रिफंड करोगे, 40 लाख हो गया तो 50 का रिफंड करोगे। यस यस, वो कंडीशन रिफंड के लिए नहीं है, पॉलिसी ऑप्ट करने के लिए है।
ओके,
ठीक है, that declaration policy is okay with the declaration policy. Yes. So ये जो spontaneous combustion है, इसके कुछ एग्जांपल्स दिए हैं। अगर आपके पास पेपर है तो आप लिख सकते हैं कि टर्मरिक किस में आएगा स्पॉन्टेनियस कंबशन के लिए, कैटेगरी 1 में, 2 में या 3 में या 4 में। ओके, इस तरह से एक 2 3 पूछ सकते हैं एग्जाम में, कभी पूछा भी है। तो टर्मरिक, tobacco, petrol, bagasse, molasses, BD leaves, chemicals, paints, fish oil, waste of all kinds, fertilizers, ground oil, ये कुछ एग्जांपल्स दिए हैं। These are not all exhaustive नहीं है, कुछ एग्जांपल्स है। आप पहले या बाद में आप रिवीजन करते वक्त ये स्लाइड को देख के आप लिखिए आपको क्या लगता है या कहाँ आता है ये, कौन से इसमें, फिर आप नेक्स्ट स्लाइड देख सकते हैं। The answers are given। टर्मरिक जो है कैटेगरी 1 में आता है, इसमें केमिकल्स कैटेगरी 3 में आता है, पेंट्स कैटेगरी 3 में आता है, फिश ऑयल कैटेगरी 4 में आता है, वेस्ट ऑफ ऑल काइंड्स विल गो इन कैटेगरी 4, ऑफ ऑयली एंड ग्रीजी वेस्ट होगा ऑफ एनी, फर्टिलाइजर्स कैटेगरी 2 है, एंड ग्राउंडनट जो है वो कैटेगरी 4 में आता है लेकिन ऑयल कैटेगरी 1 में आता है। ये ऐसा नहीं है कि इसमें से ही कुछ आएगा, बट जनरली आपका बगैस है, मोलासेस है, टबैको है, ये सब पूछ सकते हैं, या वेस्ट ऑफ ऑल काइंड, और कोई भी जो कंटेंट्स है या कोई भी मटेरियल है वो जिस कैटेगरी में आता है, जैसे कैटेगरी 3 का कुछ है उसका वेस्ट होगा तो कैटेगरी 4 में जाएगा, जिसका कैटेगरी 1 है उसका वेस्ट होगा तो कैटेगरी एक हायर में जाएगा। तो ये आप प्रैक्टिस के लिए कर सकते हैं बाद में, कि इसके ऊपर से आप लिखिए और बाद में इसके साथ क्रॉस चेक कीजिए। यू कैन गो थ्रू मोर ऑल्सो फ्रॉम द टैरिफ। सिमिलरली स्टोरेज जो है, स्टोरेज में कैटेगरी और स्पॉन्टेनियस का कैटेगरी अलग हो सकता है। जरूरी नहीं कि स्टोरेज में जो कैटेगरी 1 में आता है वो आपका स्पॉन्टेनियस के लिए उसी कैटेगरी में आए। अभी आपका बगैस जो है वो अगर आप इधर देखेंगे तो बगैस आपका स्पॉन्टेनियस के लिए कैटेगरी 1 में है, मोलासेस भी कैटेगरी 1 में है। लेकिन अगर आप स्टोरेज में देखोगे तो स्टोरेज रिस्क के लिए बगैस कैटेगरी 3 में आता है लेकिन मोलासेस कैटेगरी 1 में ही आता है। ये डिफरेंस है। तो जो आपका स्पॉन्टेनियस के लिए जिस कैटेगरी में आता है वो मटेरियल उसी कैटेगरी में स्टोरेज रिस्क के लिए आएगा, ऐसा नहीं है। तो स्टोरेज के लिए जो है हम 1 2 3 में देखते हैं और स्पॉन्टेनियस के लिए 1 2 3 4 में देखते हैं। तो जो मेजर है जो हमेशा आते हैं वो आप उसको थोड़ा देख के रख सकते हैं। So these examples are given for practice. Now exclusions जो है under standard fire and special perils policy, उसमें compulsory access जो है वो exclusion में first exclusion आता है। Then is war and allied perils, nuclear risk, pollution and contamination जो है needs little explanation। ऐसा है कि pollution and contamination, though it is an exclusion, loss or damage caused to the insured property by pollution or contamination is excluded. However, this exclusion again excludes pollution or contamination which itself results from a peril insured against, or any peril thereby insured against which itself results from pollution or contamination. So, दो pollution and contamination जो है वो excluded है। इसका मतलब है जो ग्रेजुअल होने वाला पोल्यूशन या कंटामिनेशन है विच इज नॉट सडन एंड एक्सीडेंटल इज एक्सक्लूडेड, बट कोई पेरिल ऑपरेट होता है उसकी वजह से पोल्यूशन या कंटामिनेशन होता है तो वो कवर्ड है, या पोल्यूशन और कंटामिनेशन इस हद तक होता है कि इट रिजल्ट्स इनटू अ पेरिल कवर्ड अंडर द पॉलिसी, देन इट इज कवर्ड। सो इसको इस तरह से याद रखना है कि पोल्यूशन एंड कंटामिनेशन इज बेसिकली एन एक्सक्लूजन अंडर द SFSP policy. But if pollution and contamination is a result of peril, it is covered, or pollution and contamination results into a peril covered under the policy, then it is covered. Millions precious stones up to 10,000. Loss or destruction of stock in the cold storage due to change in temperature. ये exclusion जो है it can be covered as add-on, which we have seen already under add-on. Loss or destruction of stock in the cold storage due to change in temperature is an exclusion under the policy. When there will be change in temperature, when there will be a damage to the machinery. When there is damage to the machinery, if the damage is due to the failure of power supply, but power supply failure जो है that is a result of the peril covered under the policy, in which case loss or destruction of stock in the cold storage जो change in temperature. So change in temperature is not to be seen as an independent, but it will get covered when the cause of change in temperature is due to the damage to the machinery due to a peril covered under the policy. So this exclusion जो है this gets added as an add-on cover which we have seen first only. Electrical risk, this is one important which can be asked with the number also, because ये 7 number exclusion जो है like other exclusions will not be asked as a number कि second exclusion कौन सा है या third exclusion, but 7th exclusion can be asked with the number also, because many of the fire claims, not fire claims, claims reported on fire policies get excluded or repudiated due to this reason. What is electrical risk? Loss, destruction or damage to any electrical machine, apparatus or fixture fitting arising from overrunning, excessive pressure, short circuiting, arcing, self-heating or leakage of electricity from whatever cause, lightning included. This exclusion shall apply to the particular machine, apparatus or fixture and not to other machines, apparatus, etc. What we understand this, there is an electrical machine and there is a fire within the machine due to short circuiting, excessive pressure, self-heating or leakage of electricity or even lightning. And as we have seen the definition of fire, for any property to be covered under the fire policy for loss or damage, the fire has to come from the external source. The fire resulting within the property or the machine is not coming within the definition of fire for this policy. So when the electrical machine gets damaged, for the purpose from the understanding of insured, machine jal gaya. So machine got damaged due to fire and they will report a loss. But the fire as a flame to the machine is not from the external source. So a machine is covered under a fire policy, but when there is a fire in the premises and that fire comes to the machine, then that machine is covered as a content. But when there is a fire or damage within the machine due to excessive pressure or short circuiting, then that machine damage is a machinery breakdown loss covered under engineering policy. However, that machine, if results into a flame and spreads to the other machines or other contents and spoils other content, then for all the other content, it's a fire under the fire policy, except that machine. So that machine will not be covered under fire policy, but other all machines and any other stock, building, everything will get covered. But that machine will get excluded from the definition of fire, so not covered under the policy. This is known as electrical risk. This is important not only from the but practically also those who are handling claims must have come across that the insured thinks that the machine got damaged, so there is a fire, but there has to be a fire to the property covered, not from itself but from the external source. So electrical risk is an exclusion. Architect surveyor fees in excess of 3% of 1%. We have seen that up to 3% and 1% is covered. So over and above is an exclusion. There are certain ways this tariff has been devised, that certain like in architect and surveyor fees up to 3%, 1% is covered, and excess can be taken, over and above can be opted as an add-on, but it is shown under exclusion. So architect and surveyor fees over and above 1% or 3% is an exclusion. If you want to cover, it becomes an add-on cover. Loss due to delay or loss or market or any consequential loss. Spoilage, material damage due to retardation, interruption or cessation of any process or operation. This is an exclusion. As we have seen, any material or machine which is damaged not directly due to a fire or allied presence is not covered, because it is damaged due to its a result of some other machinery being damaged due to fire. So if this is to be covered, it is to be covered as an add-on cover. Loss by theft during or after the occurrence of the peril, earthquake, volcanic eruption, loss or damage to property removed to any other building or place except machinery removed for repairs, cleaning, renovation for period not exceeding 60 days. We have seen temporary removal of stock loss, that is applicable for stock removed temporarily to other premises up to 10% of the stock by paying extra premium. But that removal of stock is for fabrication or some work being done on that. But this, if machinery is shifted to some other place, then up to 60 days it will be covered. There is no premium for this, but temporary removal of stock attracts premium. Minimum deductible except dwelling. Dwelling, there is no excess, compulsory excess, but minimum deductible for others is sum insured up to 10 crores, 5% of the claim amount, minimum 10,000, 10 to 100, 5%, minimum 25,000, 100 to 1,500, 5%, minimum 5 lakh, 1,500 to 2,500, minimum 25 lakhs, above 2,500 crores, 5% of the claim amount, minimum 50 lakhs. Sum insured for this purpose of deductible is the sum insured per location. As we have seen that policy, partial insurance is not permitted. However, it may happen that due to financial institutions requirements, the machineries and building may be covered, or even within the machineries, there may be different policies. So we are saying sum insured for deductible will be considered as per location. So per location sum insured total will be considered for applying deductible. Now please refer to the circular which also gives other deductible for other policies, engineering deductible, then deductible for cellular policies, IR under the circular. So that circular is applicable. There are conditions. Even sometime they have asked about number of conditions, number of exclusions, number of perils covered under the policy, something like that. So general conditions are misrepresentation, misdescription. Policy will be cancelled on expiry of 7 days from fall or displacement of the building covered, provided not caused due to insured peril. If it is falling due to peril, then the claim becomes payable. However, if there is a fall, not due to peril, but due to some other reason, it's become weak, then after 7 days, insured should inform to the insurance company, and it can be continued. Policy can be continued. However, if he does not inform within 7 days, then the policy will get cancelled. Insurance ceases to attach. One, if there is a change in trade. Why? Because we apply the premium rate based on the trade, occupation, and manufacture. Rates are devised based on occupation, what the property is occupied as, and what is being manufactured. Rates are devised based on that. So if there is any change in the trade, occupation, or manufacture, or building is unoccupied for more than 30 days, or if the interest passes other than by will or law. If the insurable interest is not there, then the policy will cease. If unoccupied for more than 30 days, policy will cease. Or if there is any change in trade, occupation, or manufacturing process, it will be cancelled. However, if the insured informs the insurance company and if necessary endorsement is passed, premium is collected, and intimation is given, then it can be continued. Otherwise, policy will cease to attach. Loss which is covered under marine policy will be paid under the marine policy first. Cancellation of policy. Now, under marine policy is a transit policy. However, some marine policies are extended for storage risk. So, if there is a marine policy and fire policy, marine policy will pay first. Cancellation of policy by 15 days notice by insured or the insurer. Notice of loss and submit the claim within 15 days, or if further allowed by insurer. Nobody submits within 15 days, but a condition is there. So we are studying for exam. Right of company to enter, take possession, keep possession, or sell the damaged property. This gives a right to the insurance company to enter the damaged property anytime, take possession, and keep the possession or sell the damaged property. Practically, insurance company never sells, but from the general conditions, it is insurance company has the right. Fraudulent claim. If there is a fraudulent claim, all benefits will be forfeited. Company's right to reinstate or replace the property instead of paying the amount of loss or damage. We have seen this. As I said, the word reinstatement comes in SFST policy, comes in 3 places. One is when you obtain the policy, you take on market value or reinstatement value basis. That is new for new. Market value basis is the old for old. But when you want new for new, new for old, it is the reinstatement value where you take the sum insured on the cost of reinstatement or replacement, and claim is paid without depreciation. So there the reference is given that reinstatement value policy is different from the reinstatement condition number 9. What we understand by that? The company's right to reinstate or replace the property. Again, generally, company does not do this on its own without any consent or approval by the insured. However, there is a condition that if the insurance company, if the insured feels that he wants the claim to be settled in money, however, insurance company wants to reinstate or replace the property, instead of paying the amount of loss or damage, that is, you arrive at an indemnity basis and you pay for whatever is the loss, but insurance company feels that no, it has to be reinstated. my building has to be constructed, machinery has to be replaced, only then the insurance company will settle. That right is there with the insurance company, and the insured is expected to cooperate. That is the condition 9 of reinstating the property or replacing the property as a right of insurance company. Condition of average.
Excuse me.
That is the under. Yes.
Ma'am, as you said in the last slide that it is on the wish of the insurance company whether they want the property to be reinstated. Okay.
Yes.
In that condition, if the company feels that the property must be reinstated, whether it is a building or a machinery, then the payment are in terms of money or what? Whether they pay to the insured or they directly pay to the repairer or to the contractor?
No, payment will always be to the insured. See, there is a building, or like we can take an easier example of a machinery. A machinery is damaged, your policy is on market value. When there is a reinstatement value policy, then it is always binding to reinstate, otherwise we are not paying the claim. If it's a market value policy, in case of a market value policy, the claim can be settled by assessing the loss. As to what is the loss to be paid, whether it's a total loss or a partial loss, some amount is to be paid. In the indemnity basis or market value policy, insurance company pays the amount and insured is free to repair later or not repair also. That is the market value concept of settlement. In the reinstatement basis policy, as it is, insurance company is insisting for reinstatement. Only then the claim is settled. Now, when this condition says that insurance company does not want to pay amount, but insurance company wants insured to reinstate, that does not mean insurance company will pay to the repairer. Insurance company, it means insurance company will pay only after it is reinstated. So it's a market value policy. However, by the time documents are submitted, it is more than 1 year. So by now the insured must have purchased the machinery. So insurance company, though it's a market value policy or indemnity basis policy, insurance company can ask for a bill whether you have actually replaced it. Based on that bill, the insurance company will pay to the insured. It is not necessary that payment should be made to the repairer, not like motor. It is necessary that insurance company wants a proof of reinstatement. The intention is to know whether really it has been reinstated. Now, more I said that this condition, now when you study the new policies, you will understand. Because what happens is the insured takes the claim and does not reinstate. Okay, the market value policy did not have the condition of compulsory reinstatement or replacement of the property. We could pay the amount and he could later either reinstate or not reinstate or buy something of a different value. What happens is he does not reinstate and later after some time makes again a claim of the same property. So for that reason, insurance company feels can ask to reinstate, though that is not a compulsory condition under the policy, which is on market value basis. Reinstatement value basis, as it is, he has to replace. So question is not that. Question is not, never makes payment to the repairer. Like motor, insurance company for fire will never make payment to the repairer. Payment will be done to the insured. Question is whether we'll pay the amount based on the quotation or will pay on the submission of bills. Insisting on reinstating or replacing means insisting for the repaired bills. Okay, only paid on basis of bills, authentic bills submitted to the insurance company to ensure that the property is reinstated or replaced.
Got the point, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Got the point.
Yeah. Condition of average, the very important in fire and burglary insurance. Result of under insurance is condition of average. That is, the claim is reduced in the same proportion as there is under insurance. So even if the claim amount is sufficient within the sum insured, yet the insured will be penalized for opting and paying premium on a lower sum insured. Contribution and subrogation, that is corollaries of principle of indemnity. Contribution is when there is more than one property. For the same property, if there is more than one policy, the policies will contribute in the proportion of the sum insured. Because it is not necessary that different policies have the same sum insured. If there is same sum insured, then loss can be shared 50-50. But if the sum insured differ, then the policy will contribute in the ratio of the sum insured. Subrogation, transfer of rights and remedies to insurance company. So if the insured can recover something, it should go to the insurance company after the claim. Arbitration, that is, if there is a dispute regarding quantum. If there is dispute regarding admissibility, it cannot go to arbitration. It's only regarding quantum, then arbitrator can be appointed. We are aware of the single arbitrator. If they don't agree, then the third arbitrator. All notice in writing to the company. Reinstatement of premium after the loss. From the date of loss to the expiry of the policy on pro rata basis. As I said in SFSP, 3 places you come across this. One is reinstatement value policy. Second is condition number 9. Insurance company has the right to insist on reinstatement of the property. Third is reinstatement of premium after the loss. That is when the claim is settled. Then the sum insured is like 2 crores and claim is settled for 50 lakhs. Then the sum insured will get reduced by that much amount. And subsequently, if there is a claim, then the sum insured will be less, whereas property may be of the same value because insured will purchase the stock, repair the building. So to avoid any further under insurance, this condition is there that we charge premium or recover the premium on the claim paid amount from the date of loss to the expiry of the policy on pro rata basis. What is the intention? Intention is to again restore the sum insured to the original after the payment of the claim, so that in the subsequent period till the expiry of the policy, your sum insured should not be the reduced amount, but sum insured should be the total sum insured which was at the inception of the policy. That is the intention. So here reinstatement of premium, this is reinstatement of premium. So collecting the premium on the claim amount from the date of loss to the expiry of the policy. So there is short period scale. It will have to be learned. Sometimes they ask, but that has to be learned by you by heart. Okay. Now after SFSP, there are other policy is the consequential loss insurance. Under policy, we will always see that any effect of only direct physical material loss is paid under the fire policy. A result of that is the consequential loss, which is not payable under the material damage policy. So that is the consequential loss insurance. There are only 2 consequential loss insurance, or what we call as loss of profit insurance, FLOP, fire loss of profit, or machinery loss of profit. 2 covers are there. FLOP or consequential loss is the same, fire loss of profit. Consequential loss, what is the intention of consequential loss insurance purpose? Purpose is to, what happens when there is a loss by fire or allied perils, physical loss or damage is compensated by the insurance company. But the result is ultimately what the insured loses is the profit in that period, what he would have earned. So that is the gross profit which actually he loses. He gets compensated for all the physical loss or damage. But gross profit, we don't compensate under the standard fire policy. So the intention of consequential loss policy is to cover the gross profit. Now, there can be a loss due to reduction in turnover. What happens is, when we see step by step, if there is a loss, for 6 months it takes to repair the building or the machinery, replace the machinery. In the 6 months, the turnover will get reduced. What was last year turnover in that 6 months and current turnover in that 6 months will get reduced. Then, if the insured tries to maintain the turnover, he has to either take another place, hire another machinery. So this will increase the cost of working. So there will be loss due to 2 reasons. One is turnover gets reduced, so profit gets reduced, and there will be additional again cost to be incurred for trying to at least maintain some turnover. So what is the gross profit? Net profit plus standing charges is the gross profit. Standing charges is the fixed charges which the insured has to incur irrespective of whether there is production or not. There are two charges, standing charges and variable charges. So variable charges, for example, easy to understand, is the raw material. Less the production, less the raw material. But salary, rent, insurance, these are the income tax, these are the expenses which has to be incurred by the insured irrespective of whether there is production or not. So standing charges are the fixed charges which insured cannot escape even if there is a loss under the policy and loss of turnover. So what we intend to cover is the gross profit. Components are net profit plus standing charges. Now, there is a material damage proviso under the consequential loss policy. Very important that insured must have a material damage policy. Without a fire policy, there cannot be a consequential loss policy. And the claim must be admissible under the material damage policy. If the claim falls under exclusion, under the standard fire policy, then there is no question of paying consequential loss claim also. But there is an exception that when the claim on the fire policy is so less that it falls within the deductible, then you may not pay the claim under SFSP, but consequential loss can be paid. Okay, so there must be a fire policy, claim admissible under fire policy, but amount may not, it should be admissible, but amount may not be paid because it was less and falling under the deductible. So claim is not paid, but it can result. So there can be a lower fire claim, but higher consequential loss claim, that is also possible. So all the conditions and warranties of fire policy get incorporated in consequential loss policy. If at all any add-on covers, all add-ons will also be same. Independent investigation of cause of fire is not necessary because you are already paying a fire claim. Existence of material damage policy ensures that damaged property shall be restored and insured will get some capital. Otherwise, if you give consequential loss policy independently without a fire policy, in which case there will be a possibility or intention of the insured to prolong the indemnity period. What is the indemnity period? Indemnity period is the period required to restore the building, construct the building, or replace the machinery. So indemnity period can be from 3 months to 3 years. After the loss, what time is required to repair the building or to replace the machinery and to start the business all over again is the indemnity period. So indemnity period will never be same as the policy period. Indemnity period will sometimes start in the policy period, but it will go ahead of policy period. So if there is a fire policy, insured will not try to simply prolong the indemnity period. Various other definitions which we should know under the loss of policy, the loss of profit is what is standing charges, the fixed charges.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, is there any condition or any case where material damage consequential loss policy is issued without material damage policy?
No.
No, never, no?
No, never.
Okay.
Even it should be with the same company. Issuing a consequential loss for the other company is also not advisable, and the period also should match, because if your period, like fire policy is taken on a day and consequential policy is taken after 1 month, okay, in the first till the expiry of the policy, fire policy, there is no problem. But once the fire policy expires and if the insured does not renew the fire policy, then your consequential loss policy will be running without a fire policy. That should not happen. So the fire policy and consequential policy must be taken on the same period of policy.
Fine. Thank you.
Yes. Standing charges, fixed charges, gross profit, amount by, like if you say net profit plus standing charges is gross profit, or in other words, you can say amount by which the turnover or closing stock exceeds the opening stock and the working expenses. Net profit, then increased cost of working, additional expenditure to maintain the business. What is the turnover? Money paid or payable for goods sold or services rendered. That is what we understand by the turnover. Now, period of insurance same as fire policy. Period of indemnity, date of damage to restoration of business date. It can vary from 3 months to 3 years. So indemnity period need not be the policy 12 months. However, policy to be renewed on the expiry date. Sum insured based on gross profit. And under fire policy, what is the sum insured? The value of the property. But this is a different policy where we are trying to protect the gross profit. So the sum insured will also be based on the gross profit. So generally the gross profit is to be taken from the last year's balance sheet. However, if the insured feels that the last year's profit was less and expecting to have a more profit in the current year, then he can go for a higher amount, anticipating increasing trend of business. So sum insured for LOP will be gross profit. Rate will be the same as applied to fire policy. Now standard turnover. Turnover immediately before the date of incident, which corresponds with the indemnity period. So first we see what is annual turnover, then you will understand. If the indemnity period is 1/6/20 to 30/10/20, so 4 months indemnity period. Opted may be 1 year, however, actual indemnity period was 4 months. Then annual turnover is turnover immediately preceding the incident, 1 year before the incident. So if the loss is on 1/6/20, indemnity period starts from 1/6/20. So 1/6/19 to 35/20. 1 complete year before the loss or before the indemnity period starts is known as the annual turnover. And standard turnover is the same period in the previous year equal to indemnity period. What is the indemnity period? 1/6/20 to 30/10/20. And standard turnover will be 1/6/19 to 30/10/19. So your standard turnover always be falling within your annual turnover. There is indemnity starting on 1/6/20 indemnity period. 1 year before that is annual turnover, and part of that annual turnover corresponding with your indemnity period, known as the standard turnover. So why this is required? You will know. What is the rate of gross profit? Gross profit divided by turnover into 100. When the policy is taken, insured will take the sum insured as the gross profit, and there will be some turnover. So we know that his gross profit may be either 5%, 10%, 25%. That is the rate of gross profit. Not required while giving the policy, but required for settlement of the claim. Now, annual turnover is exactly 1 year before the indemnity period starts. Standard turnover is that part of annual turnover which corresponds with your indemnity period. Whether there can be under insurance if the sum insured opted is less than the sum produced by applying rate of gross profit to the annual turnover. Now, last year there was some turnover. Based on the financial result, he has chosen the gross profit to be insured. However, this year's trend is the higher turnover. So the annual turnover may be, that is 1 year before the indemnity period starts. That annual turnover may be 12 months turnover may be higher than your last year's 31st March. That is closing turnover of the previous year. Get the difference here. Closing turnover of last year has been taken as a base for gross profit. However, with the increase in the business, the annual turnover, that is turnover just 1 year before, not corresponding with the financial year. This is the turnover before the indemnity period, but 1 year. That is more than what was the turnover last year, end of the financial year. That rate of gross profit which he has calculated on the last year's turnover, that rate is applied on the annual turnover. Then if he has opted for a lower sum insured, it will still result into under insurance. If the sum insured is less than the sum produced by applying rate of gross profit to annual turnover, the amount payable shall be proportionately reduced. So there can be under insurance in LOP policy also. So the insured, considering the trend of business, can go for a higher sum insured than last year's gross profit. excess other than petrochemical risk 7 days gross profit, petrochemical risk 14 days of gross profit. Here the excess is not in amount but the number of days. So for if there is a indemnity period of only 7 days or 14 days, then the claim is not admissible. Now we try to understand this better. Turnover is the fixed cost plus variable cost plus net profit become the turnover. Gross profit is, in other words, it can be turnover minus the variable cost. Gross profit can also be called as standing charges plus net profit. Gross profit is equal to standing charges. It can be net loss also. If there is a net loss, there is a gross profit, but there is no net profit. That is a net loss situation. So in such case, net loss will get deducted from the standing charges and all standing charges will not get covered. So this is just to show there is a policy period and there is a date of loss within the policy period. Then there will be an interruption period or indemnity period. This indemnity period from the date of loss can go beyond the policy period. Then this is a longer interruption period, or there can be something opted, but sometimes required may be more and sometimes required may be less than what is opted. He has opted for 12 months. Actually, it goes for 1.5 years. Or he has opted for 12 months. This is more than 12 months, right? Suppose 15 months goes for 2 years, or sometimes it may be lesser. Depends on the severity of the loss. Insured cannot exactly anticipate. Generally, insured will go for 1 year indemnity period. So indemnity period, his calculation may go wrong and indemnity period could be longer or shorter. If longer, then we pay only the indemnity period chosen under the policy. Shorter, then when the indemnity period ends, gross profit calculated only for that period. Because he has opted for 1 year or 15 months indemnity period, we are not going to pay for gross profit for that period. We will be paying when the indemnity ends and the business starts again. If the longer, then we pay up to the indemnity period chosen. Now there can be gross profit or net profit. Gross profit also and net profit also. This is a gross profit. Turnover is more. Standing charges results into net profit. Variable cost. So turnover is sufficient to cover everything. Then this is a gross profit, net profit scenario. Whereas turnover is less, standing charges and variable cost is more. Then what happens is, though there is gross profit, it will result into net loss. So this is just to understand that there can be a situation of gross profit but net loss, or gross profit with net profit. Then,
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, excuse me. Ma'am, kindly elaborate once again that net loss scenario of gross profit.
Okay, this is the turnover. Turnover is this much. Red line. This is the variable cost.
Yes.
Standing charges are so much. Yes. So when he is adding his turnover is the result of sale of his total sale.
Yes.
Now his standing charges are so much and variable costs are compulsorily required for achieving this turnover. Yes. For production. He cannot avoid this. Standing charges are very high, it shows. Then other than what remains as the variable cost is his gross profit. Of course, there are other components to be reduced from the depreciation and the income tax, but gross profit is there. But after paying for standing charges and variable cost, there is nothing remaining. In fact, he is incurring a loss. So when the standing charges plus variable cost is more than your turnover, it will result into net loss. When your standing charges plus variable is less than turnover, it will result into net profit.
There is a net.
Right? So if you are giving gross on the gross profit is standing charges plus net profit results into gross profit. Standing charges plus net profit is equal to gross profit. But if there is a net loss, then your gross profit will be standing charges less net loss.
Net loss.
Yes. Okay, now we see one very small, but which will make it clear the concepts once again. turnover in the last financial year was 12 lakhs. Gross profit was 3 lakhs. So he has opted for sum insured of 3 lakhs. Correct? This is the situation while taking the policy. Period of indemnity chosen was 12 months. Now, annual turnover is 16 lakhs. What is annual turnover? Turnover for last financial year, like you said, 2021 was 12 lakhs. But in the policy, which is 21-22 policy, the loss takes place somewhere in between. Then the 1 year before the loss, 12 months before the loss. If you see 1 year turnover, but from the date of indemnity or from the date of loss, 1 year behind. That does not correspond with the financial year, right? So the annual turnover is 16 lakhs. This shows that there is increasing trend of business. Last financial year, he made 12 lakhs. But if you see 12 months before the loss, then the turnover has increased to 16 lakhs. That means the trend current year is more. So standard turnover is the period of indemnity. I have not given those minute details so that we don't get confused. Standard turnover will be a part of the annual turnover which corresponds with the period of indemnity. Chosen is 12 months. Like if you say, but required was only 4 months. So in that 4 months of period of indemnity, the standard turnover was 10 lakhs. So this is 10 lakhs out of this annual turnover of 12 lakhs. Standard turnover is last year's turnover corresponding with your this year's indemnity period. So turnover during the interruption period was 4 lakhs. Okay. Now, first step we have to see is what is the rate of gross profit. So what was the gross profit? 3 lakhs. What was the turnover last year? 12 lakhs. So the 3 lakhs divided by 12 lakhs into 100, 25% was the gross profit. So opted for gross profit of 3 lakhs as the sum insured. Now step 2 is what is the turnover shortage? Standard turnover less actual turnover. Okay. So standard turnover was 10 lakhs. Less actual turnover was 4 lakhs. Okay. Now standard turnover in the interruption period in the last year, like suppose 5 months is the indemnity period. Last year in that 5 months, insured could produce turnover of 10 lakhs. But this year due to loss, the turnover reduced to 4 lakhs. Then how much it is reduced by? 6 lakhs. So now whatever is the gross profit on 6 lakhs, we should pay him. So step 3, reduce turnover, 25% charge, so that 1,50,000 is the amount payable. This is the simple. Now we have to see whether the sum insured is adequate. Step 4, adequacy of sum insured. Rate of gross profit on annual turnover. Now what is the annual turnover? That is exactly 1 year. Exactly 1 year before the period of indemnity starts or before the loss, which is not the financial year turnover, but it is 12 months turnover before the loss. It is 16 lakhs. So there was an increasing trend. So his gross profit should have been on annual turnover. So his anticipation is wrong. So if you calculate the gross profit, on the annual turnover and not the last year's financial year end turnover. So 25% of 16 lakhs, then 4 lakhs. So he has opted for a sum insured of 3 lakhs calculated on, that was the gross profit when the turnover was 12 lakhs and the gross profit was 3 lakhs. So he has opted for 3 lakhs. But considering his annual turnover, on the annual turnover, if you apply the same rate of gross profit, it will come 4 lakhs. So his sum insured is less by 1 lakh. So amount payable, so that means there is underinsurance. So amount payable gets reduced. What was the amount on the reduced turnover? Reduction in turnover was 6 lakh. So 25% on 6 lakh, he was entitled to get 1,50,000. But how much he has taken sum insured? 3 lakh instead of 4 lakh. So in the proportion, we are reducing the 1,50,000. That comes to 112,500. So this is a simple working which shows. So first step is to arrive at the gross profit. Then what is the reduction in the turnover? applying the gross profit on the reduction in the turnover, then checking whether the gross profit is taken correctly by comparing the gross profit on the annual turnover with the actual gross profit. If opted is less, then that much claim will also get reduced. So this is understand the concepts also, terminology also, and understand with a simple example. Now, over and above this, I have not added in this so that there is no confusion. Over and above this, if there is an increased cost of working is also payable, provided the expenditure is less than the reduction in turnover avoided. If insured had increased cost of working, that he would have incurred additional expenses of 10,000 rupees and reduction in turnover. Reduction in turnover is 6 lakhs. If he had incurred some 10,000 rupees and reduced the reduction in turnover. So because what he has spent is less than the reduction in turnover, like he has saved more and spent less, that amount also will get added in this claim. These can be some add-on covers for the consequential loss policies like auditor's fees, spontaneous combustion, earthquake. Generally, what is given under the basic policy is given for the consequential loss also. Additional cover for extra wages, because sometimes wages may be fixed expenses or variable expenses. Layoff compensation, retrenchment compensation, suppliers premises also added into the taken as an add-on cover only for consequential loss policy, which is not there for the basic policy. Some examples of standing charges. Generally, we know that something that does not vary with the production is a standing charges. Salaries to the permanent staff, contribution to PPF, superannuation perquisites, taxes, duties, directors' fees or remuneration, audit fees, professional charges, conveyance, traveling expenses and other expenses, interest, loan, interest on loan, debentures, bank charges, commission on dividend, depreciation on various assets, miscellaneous standing charges, any other, not exceeding 5%, and examples of increased cost of working. So standing charges, from this you will understand that when there is a claim and production is reduced or stopped, still insured has to incur which expenses? These are known as standing charges. So expenses which vary with the production or variable charges, which we are not paying. Because if turnover is reduced, then we must not have incurred, we must have bought less raw material. But if the standing charges are the ones, irrespective of production, they have to be paid. So standing charges are covered under the policy. Increased cost of working. Examples of increased cost of working can be rent for temporary premises, payment of overtime, hiring other machinery. So by doing this, by incurring some expenses, if reduction in turnover is reduced, then the expenses are payable, provided reduction in turnover is more and cost incurred is less. There is IR policy. IR policy is a combination of fire, MB, MLOP, FLOP. Fire and allied perils, burglary, MB, boiler, electronic equipment, CPM, business interruption by fire or burglary, that is business interruption, that is fire, FLOP cover, business interruption by MB, other like fire and machinery breakdown and LOP is compulsory, but MB, LOP, loss of profit by machinery, is an optional cover. Material damage, that is section 1 is material damage, and this material damage as per the policy or as per the tariff, material damage cover is for all damages, whether due to fire or machinery breakdown. So this is a all risk policy, all types of accident losses other than the named exclusions. Coverage includes perils covered under standard fire and special perils policy, all act of war perils, STFI, EQ, landslide, rock slide, subsidence, everything. Other any special perils, all other add-on like spontaneous, sprinkler. In the tariff, though it is given as these are all free, but now with so much of discounting, now when we give this policy, whatever is being charged for spontaneous combustion, that rate will be considered with all the add-on premium, because we are not charging the previous tariff rates now. So though it is said free, all these rates are nominal rates will be charged. Okay, leakage from sprinkler, all this is automatically covered. Then spoilage material damage cover, which is otherwise add-on under fire policy. It's all covered under the IR policy. Leakage and contamination cover, missile testing operation, forest fire, bursting and overflowing of tank, theft, burglary. So perils covered under machinery policy. So MB policy cover, everything is covered. Boiler explosion is covered. Electronic equipment is covered. So material damage section, one section only covers fire and allied perils, machinery breakdown cover, electronic equipment cover, boiler explosion cover, theft and burglary cover. Then your second section, excluded losses from the first section will be interruption of water supply, gas, electricity or fuel system, or failure of the effluent disposal system, collapse or cracking of the buildings, faulty or defective design of the materials, inherent wise, wear and tear, corrosion, rust, shrinkage, loss of weight, contamination, larceny, dishonesty, inventory shortage, coastal or river erosion, normal settling or bedding down of out. But some of these exclusions are already mentioned under the standard fire policy. But very specifically, some like the first exclusion, why they are mentioned under IR policies, because otherwise it's called as an all risk policy, and various add-ons under fire policy are already covered under the policy. So it is essential to say what is not covered under the policy. Excluded properties, money, checks, securities of any description, jewelry, work of art, goods held in trust or on commission, computer system records, unless specifically covered, because generally it is given unless specifically covered, because if we are silent, then goods held in trust is not covered. But with the trend, goods held in trust, if it is required, then if knowingly insurance company can cover. Vehicle licensed for road use are not covered as contents for any of those, for fire policy also. Property in transit outside the premises is not covered, though it is an industrial all risk. It is limited. It's a policy taken for the industry as a whole, but not any transit outside the premises is not covered. Property or structures in course of construction, demolition or erection. So IR policy also covers something that is machinery which is installed, building that is constructed, and not something that is in course of construction, where IR policy or other policies will come into picture. Land, pavements, roads, runways, etc., unless specifically covered. Livestock, we don't cover under fire policies. Property damage as a result of undergoing any process. Property removed to other location for a period exceeding 60 days. Loss payable to the property covered under marine policies. These are there in the fire policy also. Property more specifically insured under any other policy. Section 2 will be loss of profit. So section 1 is a combination of MB, electronic equipment and fire also. Section 2, so that is called as a material damage section. So loss of profit section, loss of gross profit arising out of interruption of insured operation. Now what we have seen as a consequential loss policy, same cover under your IR policy. Loss of gross profit and increased cost of working. You remember this, the two components of loss of profit. One is we are paying for the gross profit, and second is we will be paying also for the increase in cost of working. Exclusions, insured lack of sufficient capital. So because of that, if there is a loss, any restrictions imposed by public authority, loss of causes like cancellation of a lease, license or other. These reasons could result into increased indemnity period. Damage to the boiler, economizer, electrical installations, processing equipment. Okay, so this is IR. Section 1 and 2, why I am repeating is because we feel that section 1 is fire, section 2 is machinery breakdown, section 3 is loss of profit. That question could come on that MB cover is also falling under section 1 and not under section 2, because section 1 is called as it is the material damage section. Okay. Warranties, actually this falls under all policies, but generally more important for fire, because in fire all category 1 goods, everywhere there are warranties. So warranty is a condition precedent. Warranties are not representations. Warranty is a condition which forms part of the contract and has to be literally complied with. Breach of warranty enables the insurer to avoid a loss whether the breach has increased the risk or not. Non-standard claim is simply warranty is merely technical and not caused then any aggravated loss, then it can be a non-standard claim. Claim documents is okay, easy. In addition to fire, losses due to smoke, then water due to fire brigades, any walls falling as a result of fire, too much heat and there is damage, this is all covered in the definition or under the fire policy. Now, I think important conditions affecting claim is pro rata. We have covered all this. Okay, reinstatement of premium after the loss also we have covered. There are some examples of condition of average and which you can go through also. Anything that you want to ask what we have covered? These examples are again given just to make clear the concepts which are already
Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, I want to know the basis of deciding the sum insured in loss of profit policy. How we decide that what amount of sum insured should be declared while taking this policy?
Okay, let us go. We are studying for the exam. Let us go first theoretically.
Okay.
Last 3 years financial accounts. What is the gross profit? Insured has to choose that gross profit as the sum insured. Okay. If you want to check the documents, call for the last 3 years balance sheet. What is the gross profit, average gross profit in last 3 years? That should be the sum insured. Now, as I already mentioned, the last 3 years, in last year, due to COVID, there was no sale. So the turnover was less. Because the turnover was less, the profit was less. But insured's business has started now full-fledged this year. So he is anticipating increase in the gross profit, then he can opt for it. Higher sum insured can be taken, but it should not be less than the last year's gross profit, because the effect he will suffer. For that we have seen that example. What will be the comparison of gross profit on the annual turnover and not on the what was last year's financial turnover, right? So comparison will be done whether for under insurance on the annual turnover. So annual turnover is 1 year before the loss and not last year's 31st March balance sheet. So if he opts for a lower sum insured, he will be at a loss. If he opts for a higher sum insured, he will be at a benefit if it is somewhere nearing his annual turnover. Okay, so considering from the exam point of view, you say last year's turnover and last year gross profit. Sum insured is the gross profit. So last year's gross profit should be the sum insured. But if the insured knows that there is going to be an increased trend in the current year, then he can opt for higher sum insured. So practically something different, right? Sometimes without declaring, they are giving the sum insured and we are taking that, accepting that sum insured. Result will be known only if there is a claim. Yes, yes. Ravindra.
Madam, what is automatic reinstatement clause?
Automatic reinstatement clause is not there in the basic fire policy, right? That is an add-on which we are giving above 100 crores.
In IAR only, no?
Yes, automatic reinstatement is you are not charging any premium, but after the loss, your sum insured gets automatically reinstated to its original without charging any premium. In the normal policy, we charge premium after the loss. In IR, it gets automatically reinstated.
So without collecting any premium?
Without collecting any premium, it gets automatically reinstated, which is offered free. Even now, in the normal policies also, when it is sometimes insisted, it can be given free without charging any premium. It can be given, but that is all little discretion. So we are not covering under the SFSP. But under IR, automatic reinstatement of sum insured means sum insured becomes the original without charging any extra premium. Yes. Anything else? Some examples are there which you can see, and tomorrow we'll be seeing the other new fire policies and engineering. So this will be shared with you. So condition of average and what we have told, some simple examples are given of when the total sum insured is correct. However, the property wise separately, if we see, there is underinsurance. So underinsurance applies even if the sum insured totally is correct. It will again apply if the separate property like building machinery is on the lower side. You will consider under that property. So these some simple examples are given which you can also go through. This PPT will be shared also, right? So anything else on what we have covered today?
Any access on IAR policy?
Yes. There is access on IR. Okay, it is not added here. Either you see the circular, or I will just tell you that IR access is different from SFSP access. Okay, sum insured up to 100 crores. Now in IR, the sum insured will be considered as your physical damage plus business interruption. Total sum insured to be considered. Up to 100 crore, it is 5% of the claim, minimum 5 lakhs. And business interruption FLOP, it is 7 days gross profit for petrochemical, 14 days for petrochemical, and MLOP it is again 14 days. Then if your sum insured is 100 to 15, yes.
Ma'am, please repeat access to.
Excuse me, ma'am. Is there any
up to 100
Hello?
crores? Yes.
Hello. Excuse me, ma'am. There is comparable data of excess clauses for SFSP and IAR comparison.
There is a circular, no, dated circular of 2011, 1st April 2011. For IR, 100 up to 100 crores, 100 to 1,500, 1,500 to 2,500, and above 2,500 excess is given, which is different from your. So if you see, the first slab is up to 10 crore, 10,000 for SFSP. 10 to 100 crores, it is 25,000, 5% minimum, 25,000, up to 100 crores. But up to 100 crores, excess under IR policy is 5 lakhs. At least you can remember, because various slabs you may not remember. SFSP first slab is 5%, minimum 10,000 up to 10 crores. 10 to 100 crores, it is 5% minimum 25,000. Right? Up to 100 crores for IR is 5 lakhs. There is no 10 crore slab for IR. Up to 100 crores is 5 lakhs. That SFSP excess I have already incorporated. I think you can refer to this circular. For all slabs it is given. Hello?
From that 2011 circular, 1st April 2011, that one.
Yes. 1st April
And
2000.
it's going same, no? No changes?
No change.
Okay.
At least the first one you remember now itself, that up to 100 crore, which includes PD plus BI, that is property damage and business interruption together considered for IR policy. First slab is 5% of claim, minimum is 5 lakhs. Okay, but for loss of profit, it is 7 days of gross profit for other than petrochemical, 14 days for petrochemical, and 14 days for MLOP.
Okay.
Yeah, and then next slab becomes 5 lakhs first slab, then 10, then 25 and 50. 4 slabs. Okay, 100 to 1500, 15 to 2500. And I think you will have the circular. If not, you can just tell. I can share the circular also. Okay, this PPT will be shared. Anything else? Then we can continue tomorrow.
No, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Okay, hope it was clear, whatever covered. Then tomorrow we'll be seeing the other fire policies in comparison to SFSP and the engineering policies. Okay.